Welcome to the show. Hi, I'm Randy Jeffers, and we are live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, we have a special show for you today. We have, I think, the best guest I've ever had, the most beautiful for sure, the sweetest, the most amazing, the most gorgeous, my bride of 20 years, Dayar. So, Dayar Jeffers, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're going to talk today about a subject that I know you and I are very passionate about, and that's how to have a successful marriage, or just a successful relationship. And I know in our case, it's been a process, and we have learned probably about 3 years ago, after all these years, at least in my case, I started doing a lot of research, and because I wanted to master this subject, and it's so important. But tell us a little about yourself and why you think it's such an important thing to have a great relationship.
Well, I think that's something that really every couple want, but often fail to achieve because we're not brought up that way. You know, I think most of us are not taught that we can go to our parents to, talk to them how they handle conflicts or how they handle situations. And so I think a lot of times we grow up and we just kind of learn as we go, and then you throw in the mix with children and different pivotal moments in life. Those things really can throw you off. And so a lot of distractions, but most importantly, I think we're just not given the tools early on.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. Most of us do not have the tools, and so once we have the tools, then it becomes much easier, because all we have to do is just do a fairly good job and just a couple of things. We're so different, right? And not only are you and I very different, we're born in different countries. We were raised in totally different ways, and totally in two different generations, actually. And I might just say that she is, when we got married, we were, how many years apart? We were 18 years apart, and now we're 20 years apart, because when you came to this country, they just sort of gave you they sort of made up a birthday at the immigration, and come to find out, after we got married, we found out how old you really were. And so your legal age we're 18 years apart, but you grew up being really younger than than what you were. So like, you got out of high school at what age?
16.
Yeah. So pretty interesting, but we're all so different, and then you have this difference between men and women. And there's a really interesting book. We brought some of our favorite books, but this is A Love and Respect, and they have a whole course that talks about how men see things through a blue lens and women see things through a pink lens, and we really are different, aren't we?
Oh yes, in so many ways, but yet our basic needs are not that different. I think they're just in different orders, but our most important needs overall is very similar. And I think if we can really have the right paradigm in doing relationship and understanding what those needs are, and just really learning to meet those needs in a ongoing way, that really solves a lot of issues. At least in our case, that was the case.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. Well, let's just kind of delve right into this, because I know we have people that want to hear about what we think are the secrets to having a happy marriage, happy relationship, and I think, first of all, we probably should say that it's been our experience that the traditional marriage counselors don't seem to really offer a lot of hope. I know the people that we know that have gone to marriage counselors, and a lot of them just don't get the help that they need because they don't get the right tools, right?
I think so. I mean, I'm not knocking off, counseling. There is a time and a place for that, for accountability and for someone to walk alongside. And but I think for us, we were really fortunate to come across some really amazing tools, life-changing tools. And when you boil down to marriage relationship, really in any relationship, it's really behaviors. Behaviors dictate how we feel about someone else and how someone feels about us.
Yeah.
And so, I love the principle of the love bank. That just totally changed my world in understanding that all of us have a different, we all have a bank account for every person that we come in contact with, including you and I. And we have one for our children and our friends, and how we feel when we're with the other person determines whether how we're going to behave. In other words, we're going to want to be with them or not in the future. And that principle works the same way in a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, the love bank, it's just like a regular bank. We're either making deposits or we're making withdrawals, and a lot of relationships people make withdrawals, and they don't do so well on making the deposits, and that's why the divorce rate is so high, and even people that stay together. Pretty much most people, I think, are not really happy, or I mean, it's a rare thing to find a couple that really are happy and just ecstatic about being together and and living life to the fullest. Most people do not do that, and I think it goes back to what you said. They don't have the tools, right?
Right. And these are really simple tools. I mean, they're not easy, but they're very simple. And what these tools does is, for me personally, it focuses on my role, my responsibility. And before that starts, I mean, I had to buy into that, into this paradigm shift, in that it's my responsibility.
Let me frame it in a form of a question, okay? Because there are some baselines, and before we talk about that one, let's talk about the first baseline that I believe that you have to have in order to have a successful relationship, and that's about time. Time is so important, and don't get into a relationship with someone unless you're going to have 15 hours per week of undivided attention with that person. Now, what that means is that undivided attention is not watching TV. That doesn't count. That's not, it's eyeball to eyeball, belly button to belly button. It's spending time, quality time together without interruptions. It doesn't mean with the kids. Now it's a whole other thing, because when you have children, you have to do that with each of your children. You have to find 15 hours a week to have with each of those children, but especially with your spouse or with the person that you love and care about the most. I mean, you have to have that time, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have time to meet one another's emotional needs, and apart from your children and apart from your friends and family, and 15 hours is minimum. I mean, you can always do more. More is always good. At least in my world, the more time I get with you, I love it. And so there was a time when I think our relationship was quite neglectful, and you can feel it when your relationship has been neglected. I think, like any living things, when you neglect it for a long time, it really deteriorates. And so in marriage relationship, you really do have to make the time. But that also begs the question, well, what if you can't stand your partner because it's gone to that point and place where you can't stand each other, because you really have not met each other's needs. And that's what I love about these tools, is that it really spells out what you have to do. And if you're really serious about it, you can get to a place where you will fall in love with each other and stay in love. And I know that to be true, in our lives. So we're so excited, and it's been tried and true for us. And
well, let me just say that love is a mathematical thing. It's pure math, pure arithmetic, and we have a little test that has 20 questions on it that can determine whether you're in love with somebody or not. And you sort of people go in and out of love all the time. It's not some constant thing. But I want to get back to what you said, and I want to frame this in the form of a question.
Okay.
Because if I were to ask just a guy on the street or somebody out there listening to us, whose responsibility is it for me to be in love with this lady right here? Well, most people are going to say It's my responsibility, right? Because we're taught that way. We're taught that, like, if we're married, my responsibility is to be in love with you, right? And it's your responsibility to be in love with me. But I don't believe that. I don't think that's true at all. I think that that's the furthest thing from the truth, because there is no unconditional love that humans have. Maybe, you know, God is the only source of unconditional love. Humans don't have that ability. We're all conditional. For instance, if she beats me every night with a broom, I'm probably not going to love her very much.
But with a whip.
Or yeah, well, don't tell our secrets now. Or, you know, I mean, we're conditional, and so the whole one of the biggest secrets is all we have to do is create the conditions. My job is to create the conditions for her to be in love with me every day, and her job is to create the conditions for me to be in love with her. And when you can do that, then everything is easy. It's smooth and smooth sailing. But how do you know what to do? Because and that's probably the biggest problem. And that's those are the secrets. You know, we call them secrets, but they're really pretty simple kinds of things.
They're really just concepts.
They're concepts
that really do work. And you know, it's true. I mean, most of us are not. We don't have, you know, great examples growing up. I mean, there's probably a few couples in our circle that I can name them that just seem to have a natural way of doing relationship that's just effortless. That they just genuinely love each other, like each other, and I think one of them is our friend Mornay and Lizelle. I just love the way they engage and interact, and they're one of the very few exceptions from the beginning of the relationship that they just are in sync. But most of us, we really have to learn and navigate these tools. But
Exactly.
you know, for me, I think accepting and believing, being completely sold into that principle that it's my responsibility to create the environment for you to fall in love with me and to stay in love with me. It does, at first it seems like that's so unfair, because what about you? You know, that's like the taker in me, you know. But then as I study more and as I understand these tools and the concept behind this, is the idea behind it is that really I have the power. It's in my hand when I realize that it's up to me to create that kind of conditioned environment. I have the power to change, to choose, and to create a marriage that I want. And naturally, you know, if it's behaviors that are good for us, then, you know, your response is going to be naturally loving, and it just kind of perpetuate itself in time, which is exactly what it had on our relationship.
Well, we found the greatest guru of relationships in the world, and his name is Willard F. Harley Jr. And you can get all these books on Amazon, and they were just life-changing for us. But one of the first one is called His Needs, Her Needs. This is a cassette version of parts of it, but His Needs, Her Needs, that's probably the first one you want to have. He Wins, She Wins is sort of a follow-up to that.
Oh, can I just say something about this? Because this book is so empowering. This tool really teach you how to negotiate fairly. And, you know, because conflict is inevitable in every relationship, and conflict is not a bad thing. We think of conflicts like war, like in the Middle East or around the world. It's not like that. Really, it's just disagreement in relationships, and that's a good thing. You know, it's an opportunity to grow closer. It's an opportunity to really sync your relationship in a more intimate level, and it really has really equipped me to handle conflict in a very positive way, and to be able to negotiate what I want without the expense of you being unhappy. And I love it. It is just revolutionary.
Well, yeah, whether conflicts are good or bad, I mean, it doesn't matter, because they're just going to happen. You know, they're going to happen to the best couples, you know, every hour. Every hour on the hour, you're going to have a conflict of some kind or another. And it's not that you have a conflict, it's how you resolve the conflict. It's learning how to resolve it. And really, it's good relationships are really about satisfying your partner's needs. And so how do you know what their needs are? Well, the only way you're going to know what someone's needs are is to ask them. And so we have a worksheet that goes through, and it's just questions. So when you and I did this the first time, you filled out yours, and it was all kinds of things about me and things about you, and then I did the same thing, and so now I know what her needs are because I have it in writing, and I have the paper and I refer to it. Sometimes after a while I might forget about it, so I go back and look at it again. Now I'm a nut about this stuff, so I have to tell you that I'm going to show you some things in my worksheet, because I go to the University of Dayar, and this is a lifetime study, so it's forever, and because I want to learn about this young lady here, and it's not easy. It really does take a lifetime, and so but anyway, this is the first book. You want to get this, and really it's about satisfying her needs and doing the things that she actually needs, because most of us do the things that we want, right? And we don't do the things that our partners want, and they're really, really different, and it's not doing the things that she doesn't want. These are love busters. These are the bad things that we all do, and so this is a companion book that you want to get. And just go to Amazon or your bookstore and you'll find these books. But these books are incredible.
Can we touch a little bit
Absolutely.
about the Love Buster? Because I think that a lot of times people aren't even aware that they do Love Busters all day long and don't even realize it towards one another. And Love Busters really are just behaviors. They're either habits or instincts that we're born with, that we just do effortlessly, and a lot of times without even being conscious of it. Like being selfish demands, or just making disrespectful judgments, like how can you think that way, or little things like that. Those are examples of love busters. And the key to falling in love and staying in love is to eliminate all the love busters in our lives, but first it takes awareness. And so when you mention about the inventories, that really does help identify what those love busters are in each person's relationship, because obviously I can identify the love busters that I feel I receive from you and vice versa. And that's one of the things that you
do that well, by the way.
Well, and I thought that there was a time, obviously, when you were just a workaholic, and there was a lot of resentment built up for many years. But what I found is that as we go through these eliminating these love busters in our relationship, these feelings of resentments and just really unresolved issues, and they just disappeared. They kind of really take care of itself, and because joy was being replaced in our relationship, because my needs were being met, you were spending time with me continually. What I noticed that by eliminating these love busters that we became aware that we use in our relationship all the time, it just it's like clearing out the smoke from the room, I guess, for me. And the atmosphere changed. It was just so freeing. That's all I can say, and it really contributed to my love feeling towards you.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a freeing up kind of a thing, and it's amazing. We have friends that they're just like, we're all the same, I guess. We rationalize things, we make excuses for things. We're workaholics because we're doing it for our family. But it doesn't really matter what your excuse is. Your relationship is not going to improve unless you're satisfying your partner's needs. Now let's talk about needs for a second, because if you take all the emotional, the needs that people have, they pretty much will fit into about 10 neat little categories. And so women have different needs than men, by and large. If you took all the women in the world and added them all up together, and they're going to, and you ask them their top 5 needs, they're pretty much going to be very similar. And the same thing with men, if you average them all out. But if I were to ask you, what do you think is the number one need that most women have? What would you say that it would be? Well, people come up with all kinds of things, right? But the number one need is Affection. Right?
Affection, and I think maybe that doesn't mean that there are exceptions. I mean, there are some women that meaningful conversation is more important than affection. So I think, but overall, yeah, affection is the number one.
Yeah, affection comes number one, and the number two is intimate conversation.
Yes.
Now, there are women, I'm sure, that or some other need is more important than those things, but on the average, it's affection. Now, affection does not mean sex. It's two different things, right? Now, let's talk about men. So if
Right.
you're gonna, right, they're two different things. Now, if you want to talk about men, what do you think is the number one need that most men have? And that is
Sex.
sexual fulfillment. That's
Yes.
right. And number two is
Recreational companionship.
recreational
Yeah.
companionship. And now this is a real interesting, because that's having a buddy to do things with. Now, here's a good example. You have a lot of husbands, for instance, that like to play golf. Their wife does not like golf. She doesn't want anything to do with it. She likes shopping. And so the husband hates to go shopping, right? And so what happens is the guy goes golfing every week with his buddies, and then one day some little gal comes and joins the foursome, and they pick up a friendship, and the next thing you know, there's an affair going on, and next thing you know, there's a divorce. And that's a pattern that is just repeated all the time. And so, how many things are there that people can do? There's thousands, hundreds at least, many hundreds of things that you could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to find something that you really love doing that you can do in common. And something that is just exciting to both of you. And when you do that, then all of a sudden things are different, because you also have to put up guardrails. Talk about guardrails a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just picture your child going hiking with you. I mean, you just feel safer if there's a guardrail there versus when there isn't one. And I think in marriage too, that we do have to put guardrails in our marriage relationship, and that's why spending time together, adequate enough time, minimum 15, is really important.
Yeah.
Because that's when we connect and build relationship, and that's where intimacy is ever evolving. And so you got to spend time with your spouse, your loved ones, and it's really important to do the things that you both enjoy. And if your spouse doesn't enjoy something that you enjoy doing, brainstorm and find something that you both equally enjoy. And for us, luckily, it's just being together and spending time together with our children, just together, taking walks. So it's really easy for us. But I mean, that's not to say that you can't have girlfriend times or do things and just have some space. Well, all in all, like just hobbies wise, it's really important to cultivate a lifestyle that you two really are really connected, which safeguard, I mean, that just kind of takes us to the next level, well, I should say the next concept of Harley, which is the policy of joint agreement. And boy, that was really hard for me to incorporate into our relationship, because I'm very independent, and you haven't worked a lot of hours and just focusing on the business. I made a lot of decisions on my own, I mean, anywhere from grocery to things with the boys, or having my girlfriend trips, so I'm so used to, and you've allowed me that luxury for many years to make those kinds of decisions. So when we agreed to do Harley's principles, that was one of the things that I thought it was going to be so difficult, but then as I embrace it and practice it, and I recognize that, oh, it's a two-way street. It's not just me doing whatever makes you happy. That's not that at all. It's really about finding a solution that we're both happy.
Right.
And as we develop, these habits, we're both just really happy together and for each other. And ultimately, what I experienced was that I did not enjoy or want to be happy at your expense. I really truly didn't want to make any decisions or didn't want to have my way if I knew that was going to cause you, grief, that was going to really hurt you or just make you really, sad and disappointed. Right. And so I think that's that's really a picture of what love is. You know, it's really not sacrificing yourself, but really coming together and finding a solution that you both can truly get behind. And really, I give you all the credits for sticking to it, making sure that we follow the process correctly. You wouldn't give up, but you also wouldn't let me give up when I play the martyr in that process as well. And I just really appreciate that you continually insist that we do it right, and that we get to a place where it's a win-win for both of us.
Well, like I said, I'm a nut about these things, and one of the things that we learned through these books of Willard Harley is there's 10 basic principles. Now, I have taken all these principles. The first one is the love bank, which Dara was talking about. But I've taken all of these and I've put them on. I've printed them out on colored paper. I've actually framed them, and if you come to our bedroom, you will see. Fortunately, we have a pretty good-sized bedroom with a lot of walls, but you will see these things in frames, beautifully framed, hanging there, and some of the other basic principles as well, all surrounded around a picture of us. And because I want to have them in front of me, and so when I'm shaving, for instance, like in the hallway from in our bedroom that goes into where the bathroom is, when I'm shaving, I just walk around. I'm shaving with electric razor, and I'll be walking around shaving, and I'll be reading on the wall, because I want them to be in front of me, because we forget about these things, and they're basic kinds of things, but if we don't keep them in front of us, we're going to get sidetracked, and then we're going to and then we're going to be, you know, doing this out of love, and then, you know, we have to work hard to get back in love. And so and by the way, you know, love is sort of up and down, up and down, up and down, but what you want it to be is up and down, but trending up, sort of like a guy walking up the stairs with a yo-yo in his hand, so that over time, when you have a little spat or something goes wrong and you have a downtime, that downtime is way higher than your highest high was, you know, 5-6 years before. And so that's the secret to life, I think, is the up and down, because they're just going to happen. You're going to have conflicts. You're going to have things that happen. You handle them quicker and quicker all the time as you learn the secrets. But the idea is to be on an upward trend. So let's real quickly go through these. We have the love bank is number 1. And then number 2 is called instincts and habits. And it says instincts are behavioral patterns that we're born with, and habits are patterns that we learn. And the third one is this is just a listing of all the emotional needs. So you have things like affection, sexual fulfillment, intimate conversation, recreational companionship, honesty and openness, physical attractiveness of your spouse, your financial support, domestic support, family commitment, and admiration. Now, everybody is a little bit different, but remember, they all pretty much average the same kinds of things. But some people might have financial support. You know, if maybe they were in a situation early on in their life where money was just non-existent, and financial support's important to them. You know, and it overrides all the other things. Maybe that's the case with some people. But now, this next one is called Policy of Undivided Attention, and that's the one we talked about, where you have to have 15 hours. I mean, minimum. Don't even get into a relationship unless you're going to do that, right? It doesn't make sense. Right?
Well, you think about it, in, you know, the beginning of a courtship relationship, you know, you probably spend more than 15 hours a week together, talking and sharing, holding hands, whatever. But you just spend those moments giving each other undivided attention, and over time you reach that threshold where you fall in love with each other. And you know, it doesn't have to be just the beginning stages. It truly can be your whole life through, if you apply the right principles and practice daily.
You know, it's amazing that, you know, when people fall in love, you know, and they first get together, and you know, you can't stay away from that person. I mean, you'll drive 100 miles just to spend 2 minutes with that person, get in the car and go back another 100 miles, right? Just to be able to see them and be with them for just a few minutes, if that's what you have to do. And then, you know, they get married, and then, you know, 7 or 8, 10 years later, they won't talk to each other. They go out to dinner and they don't even talk to each other. They don't even look at each other. You know, it's just amazing. You know, what happens to people, and a lot of it is this next principle, and that's the Love Busters. That's what the Love Busters book is about. And these are selfish demands, disrespectful judgments, angry outbursts, annoying habits, independent behavior, and dishonesty. So it's learning how not to do any of those things, how to overcome those, and work on just doing what your partner is, what satisfying their needs. Now the next one is policy of radical honesty. And do you want to talk about that one?
Well, the idea is that you, as much as you can, be honest about, who you are. That includes your past, your family, just your life, past, present, and perhaps and even future. And the goal is that you do life together. You discuss things. You know one another, and I understand that. You want to build trust, and by doing this, being radically honest with each other, you truly can trust one another, and you know where each other are at, and you know who each other are. You know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the idea is to allow our spouse to make that decision, to make that choice about us. And the wonderful thing is if our spouse knows the worst part about us and still loves us, that's pretty amazing. And so then there's really nothing to fear.
Exactly. Now the next one is the giver and the taker, and we all have a giver inside of us, and we have a taker. And I'll leave that for the book. But the next one is a policy of joint agreement. Now this is a really good one, and now what this says is never do anything. Now that means anything without an enthusiastic agreement between you and your spouse. Okay, so it means never, and it means anything. So never do anything without an enthusiastic agreement between you and your spouse. So if you're going to do something, and one of you doesn't want to do it, find another thing to do. There's so many things out there, so many different ways to do things, and so you want to be enthusiastically in agreement, and it just changes everything. Some of these things are they're paradigm shifts, and you have to sort of shift your thinking to buy into these. But once you've done that, it just changes everything, right?
That's such an important principle, because most of us, like I said, we make independent choices all day long, and if that choice doesn't bother our spouse, if they don't have any problem with it, then that's okay. You don't need to brainstorm to find a solution, because it's not an issue. But there are going to be times when you do need to consult one another, because you know your spouse better than anybody else. Like, if you already have a hunch that my husband or my wife is not, I don't know, that they probably won't like it. Well, that's the time that you discuss and you talk it out. Because that creates unity, and it continues to make a deposit into that love bank that we talked about, that framework. You don't want to do anything that withdraws your love bank, because it doesn't make sense, to make a deposit and then withdraw right away. I mean, if you did that in a bank account, you end up with really zero balance, and sometimes even negative if you don't make enough deposits. So this is just a great way to continually deposit love into your bank.
Yeah, and the last one is marital negotiation, and that really is about, let me just throw my glasses on, but this is kind of small print, but number one is establish the ground rules, be pleasant and cheerful, put safety first, no demands, disrespect, or anger. If an impasse is reached, stop and come back later. And then number two, identify the issue from both perspectives. Nail down your partner's perspective. That's really important, and get a sign off. Get an understanding now, not an agreement. All you're doing is you're trying to understand the issue from their perspective. And then you brainstorm. So you're going to brainstorm with abandon. Represent both yourself and your teammate. Create a menu of options of possible solutions. And you might want to write these things down. You might have 100 of them. It doesn't matter. There's no bad ones. You just write them all down. And then number four, you select the option that works for both of you and that you enthusiastically agree on, that meets the conditions of the policy of joint agreement. And then you test the solution for a week or so, and then evaluate to see how that worked, right? Right.
This process really is the pathway to discovering a solution that you both are happy with, and isn't that what we want?
That's what we want.
That's really the goal in marriage relationship, is doing life and loving one another and allowing each other to be themselves, but yet not inflicting our wishes or demands on the other person at anybody's cost.
So I have all kinds of little truisms, and by the way, truisms are called truisms because for the most part they're true, right? So they have all kinds of great things. Here's one here: you have no right to try to control your spouse, regardless of what he or she is doing. And so many of us, we try to make over our spouse. We want them to, and we work really hard at it for some reason. We want them to be what we want them to be, but they are what they are. And when you have this commitment to mastering what the needs are, and learning how to satisfy your partner's needs, they'll make themselves over. It'll just happen. It happens automatically. But you have to take responsibility, I think, for yourself. So if it's to be, it's up to me. I have to be the guy that starts it, right? I have to be the one that satisfies your needs, and then you get on the train and you start satisfying my needs, and then all of a sudden we're pretty happy, right?
Right. Well, it's a learning curve, to not impose our wills and wants on the other person. Just really allowing the other person to be who they are, and that's not excusing for people for behavior that are unhealthy, obviously, that are not depositing love into the bank. But I'm talking about perhaps these things are more instincts and maybe personality, but we certainly can tweak it. And the process of negotiating and finding a solution is that in our journey sometimes we can't quite come up with a solution that we both are in agreement with, but we come up with maybe two ideas that are really good that we both can live with, and so we've decided to do one person's idea first, and we allow a little window to practice it, and whether it's a week or a month, and then we revisit, right? And if that idea doesn't work, we figured out, okay, let's try the other way,
right?
And then we just fine tweak it. But the important is that we're doing it together enthusiastically.
One of these here I just saw was about honesty, and it's amazing the couples, a lot of couples that we know where people do things, they hide things from their spouse, Well, we'll go shopping and we won't tell.
You mean the time that I told you I saved up,
Yeah.
$50,000?
Yeah, right.
that I had to give you.
Yeah, right. So let's see what else we have. We have some nuggets in here. I mean, there's so many wonderful, great things. But your spouse is your most important friend or relative. No other friend or relative should ever come between you. Now, that's a really important one. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we tell our kids, we have an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old, and you'll get to see our 8-year-old in a couple of minutes. But we let them know that we love them with all our heart and that we would die for them, but we love each other a little bit more. And I think that's important for our kids. We want them to know that because we want them, when they get married, to have that same feeling with their partner, right?
Right. Well, yeah, it's important to provide them a good model for marriage, and it isn't perfect, but it's healthy, and that they can have something to learn from, and that, well, this is how my parents did it and it worked for them and they're in love, and so naturally your kids are going to want to draw from your experience and wisdom if they witnessed it for themselves.
Exactly.
And so which really is this tool is so incredible that it really truly can take a relationship at the brink of divorce or even separation or already divorce and everything in between to just hating each other's guts, to really falling in love all over again, and perhaps even better than ever was. And that truly has been my experience with us, and so I am my own guinea pig in applying these tools. And there is definitely hope if there are two willing people that want to make their marriage relationship work.
Exactly.
And this is exactly what these tools have done for us, and we're so excited. We just want to share with all our friends and with those out there. So if you need just some pointers, please feel free to contact us, or we can just point you to the right directions and point you to the right resources.
Here's an interesting one. Of all the people you're more likely to hate your spouse than anyone else. Now, that's anybody in the whole world. You're more likely to hate them than anybody else. And your spouse is more likely to hate you than anyone else. And that's because we have this vested interest in each other, right?
Well, yes, absolutely. But everything we do to affect each other. You know, my greatest source of happiness, it has almost everything to do with you, as well as my greatest source of unhappiness also is affected by everything that you do or don't do. And you know, it's really important. We are in a relationship, and that is that we relate to each other. And so learning to relate to each other in a healthy way is a must if you are to have a healthy marriage.
Yeah. Here's one here. Now this is honesty is a really important one for me. And so honesty is like a flu shot. It may give you a short, sharp pain, but it keeps you healthier in the long run. And I mean, that's why it's so important to not have secrets, to just to be open yourself up, be transparent, and you know, the good, the bad, the ugly. And when your partner knows all those things and still loves you, you know, that's a pretty amazing thing. I have this upside down here, going the wrong direction. But so what else you want to say about all of this?
It has just been a wonderful journey, all in all. It certainly is not the conventional paradigm that I grew up with, or I learned in college, as well as, you know, from friends and others, or even in the church. The traditional paradigm is that you love your spouse unconditionally, and that, you know, you're committed for life, and you know, all that it sounds great, and you wish you could, you know, do that. But the reality is that love is conditional in a marriage relationship, as well as really friendship is conditional, and it's really a matter of meeting one another's needs. And so having this paradigm shift has really empowered me to realize that at any moment, if I feel like my relationship is not where it can be, or where it needs to be, I can do something about it. And it's really starts with me, and it keeps my eyes off of you and what you should be doing to make me happy. But really, my eyeballs is on me, and say, what am I not doing, or what do I need to do to, you know, continue to create an environment that is loving, that would attract you to be in love with me, or that would want you to be in love with, you know, me. And like I said, it's very empowering. It's not your traditional model for doing relationship, and I'm so glad we ran into it. You know, I give you the credit mostly for really starting and engaging us in this journey, and I'm really thankful.
Well, you just said something that was really, really important. And you know, it's most of us, you know, we're the center of our own world, our own universe, right? And everything sort of revolves around us. And you know, when we have that paradigm shift that you were talking about, where we think more about what can we do to satisfy our mate than what can they do, because most of us people out here, you know, in the world that are in a relationship, we're always thinking about, well, how come he's not doing that for me? You know, it's more of a selfish kind of a thing instead of a giving kind of a mentality. And so, you know, it really makes a lot of difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Here's one here. My mate is not my enemy. You know, your mate is the most important person to you. They're not your enemy. And when you get into a little tussle or a conflict of some kind, it's really important to remember they're not the enemy, and you don't have to win with your mate. You know, it's you're really together, right?
Right.
Well, you know, we're almost out of time, and we have somebody over here sitting with the engineer, Scott. But Lucas, would you come over here? Come right over here, baby.
He's been waiting
He's
so
been sitting over there
patiently.
watching us, and this is our 8-year-old. And so when you have a happy marriage and a happy relationship, you have happy kids, right?
Yeah.
And are you a happy guy?
Yeah.
So what do you say to all the people that see those 3 cameras up there? A lot of people are watching us right now. What do you want to say to them? Should they all, do you think, if they're unhappy right now, you think there's hope for them and they can have a happy relationship like Mommy and I do?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, we really mean that. You know, if you've lost hope, if you're out there and you think that maybe there is no hope. Maybe there's no way you can get out of this. And you know, don't repeat the cycle. Don't get divorced and go repeat it. You know, figure out what it is that, what the secrets are. And if you need our help, you call us. You can email me, randy@randyjeffers.com, and I'll point you in the right direction. We'd be glad to help you. So thanks for being here, and I hope this has been really helpful. And we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Bye bye, everybody.